All right, guys, welcome to Beyond the Muscle. I'm excited to welcome our next guest, Anthony Stickings. So, Anthony is a natural bodybuilder and 2022 and 25 Mr. Scotland, and a musician too. And importantly, he's also the first guest who shares my name. So, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, welcome. It's really good to have you on. I know you're deep in contest prep, like we just chatted about. Yeah, you've obviously put a lot into this season. How's it all going for you? How is this prep going so far?
It's going well, thank you, Anthony. We are 6.5 months or so deep into prep.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, going as well as can be expected. Feeling it, very much feeling it, but
Yes.
grateful. Grateful for the opportunity to be able to do it.
Yeah, good mentality to have there. Yeah, so this is your second, is it your second season? I'm not too familiar with your entire history. Right? It's your second full season.
Yes, just my second season, yes. And my first season consisted of one show in total.
Got it. Right, right. Yeah, so yeah, looking back at your 2022 prep, yeah, you've clearly made some quite great progress, both in like muscularity and clearly conditioning as well, in this time. How would you compare if you had to like compare the two preps? How has
Yeah.
it differed from 2022 for you?
Yeah, the main thing is just time. And I mean
Okay.
the time of the prep itself. Of course, you've got the time, the 3 years in between, to make progress, but just giving myself more time to prep. Essentially, in 2022, I decided with 3 months to go, I will compete this year.
See,
Um,
right.
that was rough, as I'm sure
Yeah.
you can imagine.
Yeah, interesting. So did you have to drop quite a lot of weight for that first prep then?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's to be honest, it's been a similar amount of weight dropped, but essentially in half the time. And
Hmm.
I never quite got down as far as I wanted to in 2022, and that was just a matter of time
Yeah, yeah, makes
and
sense.
lack thereof.
Lack thereof. Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. What has yeah, so obviously conditioning is very different. How have side effects I'm curious to hear actually, have like side effects been worse with a
Mhm.
longer prep or were they worse with a more aggressive, shorter prep?
Do you know, I think I thought it would be easier with a longer prep, and initially it was. But I think what happens once you get down to those last few pounds that you need to lose, I think regardless of how you slice it,
Hmm.
if you're striving for that last little bit of condition, you are going to feel it regardless of how long you've given yourself to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
makes sense.
I would say it's probably similar. 2022 was difficult in the sense that it essentially turned into a dive bomb prep,
Yeah.
as I've heard people describe them. This
Mm.
was a bit more controlled, but the last couple of months have been a bit of a dig, this prep as well,
Mm.
to say the
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, and it makes sense. I think yeah, there's no avoiding those side effects once you get below a certain level of body fat, and yeah, it's just it's unavoidable, really. I'm the same. I think I've always done. I say always. I've had two competitive seasons. They're both been long preps as well, and yeah, it always starts off like the first half is great. Hunger is at a minimum. It's all going, it's plain sailing. But then you get into those deep dark stages. And yeah, it doesn't matter what kind of dietary approach you follow, you're going to be ravenously hungry all the time. You're going to be low on energy. Mood is going to be altered. I think there's no avoiding it. I'd be curious to hear if some people can navigate it without getting to that level, all those side effects. But I think it's part of I don't want to say the joy, but it's part of it's the allure, is knowing that you're pushing yourself really hard. It makes it all the more worthwhile, I think. And I'm sure you probably agree. But yeah.
And very much
Mm.
so, very much so.
Yeah. So yeah, you're someone I've wanted to chat to you for a while. So I know obviously we chatted before, and you're a bit of a fan of like the golden era of bodybuilders, and we were
Yes.
chatting about like Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. So yeah, I love that book, one of my favorites. And I remember reading it when I was just getting started into bodybuilding way back in 2001. So I've got a very old edition of that book. And whilst I think it's dated in many ways, I think if someone were to just follow roughly what was in that book, they'd still make some decent progress today. If they were a newbie lifter potentially. But what was it about that era of bodybuilding that kind of really resonated with you?
You know, I was actually talking to my father about this recently, who incidentally is the one that kind of introduced bodybuilding to me. I
Mm.
think what it is about that era, and it's funny you say about enjoying the grind of this part of prep and things like that. I love how fun it looked back then. Obviously,
Right.
they didn't necessarily push for ultimate condition. It was maybe more
Mm,
of a shape thing and size and things of that nature was the game that they played. But it just looked like they had a whale of a time back
mm,
then.
yeah.
Training seemed to really complement their lives
Mm,
um, rather than consume it.
yeah, that makes sense. I think pumping iron kind of embodies that message really well. I presume you've seen that.
Yes.
Yeah. They're having a lot of fun in that, aren't they? Regardless of how much of that is kind of fabricated, they're still having fun for sure. Yeah, and you're right. The condition levels aren't, they're not to today's levels for sure. But yeah, wonderful shape and structure with some of those top guys. Who are your like biggest inspirations from that era, would you say?
I think the first one, obviously, Arnold. There's no getting around it. My dad was a
Mm,
massive Arnold fan. But as
mm,
soon as I got that encyclopedia and started flicking through pictures, I'm only 5'6", 5'7" on a good day. Um, I would see someone like a Frank Zane, and in
mm,
my 14-year-old head think, oh,
mm.
maybe there's something I can do here.
Yeah,
Um, Not that Frank Zane was 5'6", but yeah, I liked the leaner, more lithe side of things. Frank Zane, the Sean Rays,
mm,
and then kind of stretching back even further, I would find people like Steve Reeves and
yeah.
Clancy Ross and Reg Park, and think, okay, there's something to this here. There's maybe a route here that I can take.
hmm Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, there was something very kind of, I mean, they had great genetics, obviously, but there was still something quite attainable about those physiques, especially Frank Zane. It's funny actually, because yeah, for me it was Arnold as well. His physique was, for me, it was very aesthetically pleasing. Despite like that, mountainous biceps, and not the smallest of waists, but it was still, you put it all together, it was just a very pleasing physique. Whereas at the time, I remember looking at Frank Zane and thinking, oh, it's not enough. It's not quite big enough. But it's only now as I've got older, I really kind of, I look at that and think, yeah, that is a wonderfully pleasing physique to look at. Frank Zane, definitely. Um, yeah. So many great guys from that era. Out of curiosity, do you follow much of like modern bodybuilding at all these days?
I do. I still keep up to date with everything. I'm a bit of an anorak, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
When it
I mean, sorry,
comes to
I mean in the pro, in the not in the pro, in the enhanced side is what I meant. Sorry, you follow that
yeah,
as well. Yeah,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I've ever since I got into it, I've always followed it. I could rattle off the Olympias in any given year, just because it's what's always interested me, regardless if I'm following the natural side of things or the enhanced things. I'm always curious, endlessly curious as to
Mm,
what's going on.
yeah. No, that's great. Out of curiosity, actually, because I've asked this to a few guests, and it's something I've never really considered is going down the enhanced route. For various reasons. Is there anything that's ever crossed your mind at all?
Never as anything more than a curiosity, as I
Hmm
think we always go, oh, what would I look like if I did
Mm,
that? But there's not that I've ever held any judgment necessarily against enhanced people. Your route is your route, and
yeah,
by all means do it. There's something I love looking in the mirror and knowing that anything that's looking back at me, I don't need to wonder where my effort ended and something else started.
that's a great point. Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? Yeah, I'd never really considered looking at it that way, but yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Um, yeah, what's quite fascinating for me is like even if you look at the top naturals these days, and I've mentioned it before, that it's clearly grown so much from like obviously the golden era. Well, natural bodybuilding wasn't really a thing then. But I say like the top natural guys, like the DFAC and the WMBF, are probably like approaching or at the same level of like muscularity as they were in the golden era, but with even more condition. So it's amazing to see how far we've pushed things. Um, yeah. What do you make of like the physique? Like obviously the enhanced physiques are very different. If you look at like the Mr. Olympia level physiques to the top naturals, what do you make of the enhanced look?
I can admire it for what it is
Hmm
and for the undeniable effort that's been put in. That I tip my hat to anyone that is even genetically capable of taking it to
mm
that level and
Yeah.
willing to do so.
Mm.
It's impressive. It's impressive to look at. It's just not to my taste
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty much the same there with you. Um, yeah, no, that makes sense. Want to chat about kind of where it all began for you, Anthony? So obviously, yeah, you're 32, is that right? 32,
Yes.
yeah, and you've been training for presumably quite 15 years or so, was it?
Yes, started at about 14,
Okay.
thereabouts. So yeah, approaching the 20-year point in the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
couple of years.
Oh, so you started pretty young. Okay, well, that's cool. Can you give like the listeners and viewers an insight into kind of where it all began for you and what kind of sparked your love for the gym?
Yeah. Yeah, I can pin it down to an exact day.
Right, right,
It was the annual clear out of the family garage.
right, right.
Um, and we're, sorting things, throwing things away. Mum and dad are out saying, "Oh, get rid of that, get rid of that." And underneath my dad's toolboxes and stuff like that, there's two dumbbells with just a little bit of weight on it. I'm like, what's this?
Mm.
Pick them up, and just instinctively, I did a lateral raise.
Right.
I was like, oh, I like that. And
Mm.
my dad kind of caught me doing that, and he's like, okay. I'm like, yeah, but those are my weights that I used to use, and so on and so forth. My dad used to be very much into bodybuilding in the early 80s. Never in a competitive way, more in a keep fit and live your life kind of way. Um, but yeah, he knows his stuff
Yeah.
in terms of bodybuilding as well and the history of the sport. And I wouldn't say he never ever took over my training or anything like that. He just kind of said, "Here's a few exercises, give them a go." I don't think
Mm.
he ever expected it to go
Mm.
where it did. I think he thought I'd do a few push-ups and pull-ups, and that'd be me.
Yeah.
But yeah, started with the annual garage clear out and finding a pair of dumbbells, and it was pretty much love at first lift.
Yeah, that's amazing. And quite incredible that you can pinpoint to that kind of exact moment as well.
Yeah,
I'm curious actually, will you say you were like a hyper responder when you first started, or like let's say compared to like your friends who were training at the same time, did you respond very
yeah.
well to weight training, would you say?
Actually, I would say no. I was always one of the
Mm.
weaker ones of my
Okay.
friends that had started training as well. Um, what I will say is that my dad and my younger brother, who doesn't actually train, they both have just naturally muscular, incredible looking physiques, and
Yeah.
I was always just straight up and down.
Hmm.
What did happen, I didn't necessarily get strong very quickly, but I think that inherent genetic thing switched on very quickly after I started training, and I got lean fast.
I see.
So that was encouraging. Didn't get big, never ever really got big, but
Hmm.
I got lean very quickly without changing anything in my diet or anything like that, just by training a few nights a week.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was encouraging. That happened quickly.
Yeah.
The kind of lean factor came out.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah, you say you never got big. I beg to disagree there because you look massive in terms of your yeah your physique. There's a real density to your physique, which I'm sure it can be attributed to yeah a long time training as well for sure. Um, but yeah, and it's especially if you're around other people with good genetics, you're always going to be comparing yourself to them, I guess. Um, okay, so and then how long was it before you first competed? Sorry, how long was it from when you first started to then? Because you competed in 2022, so not too long ago, really.
Yeah, yeah.
You,
I'd been
yeah,
training for 13, 14 years
mm,
before I ever went on stage. Yeah,
yeah, and you won an overall on your first. Did you
I
win the
did.
overall on your?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
Interesting.
did the novice and the overall,
Yeah,
with
yes.
and the
Yeah,
best.
okay.
Best field. Yeah,
Oh, so you did best wills, novice, and overall on your first attempt.
yeah,
That's funny.
yeah.
Yeah, so did I on my first attempt in 2015, and I know of one other person that's done that as well, who I've had on the podcast. I think it's quite. We were chatting actually months ago. We thought we were the only ones, but apparently there's another one. So yeah, yeah. So that's great. So you didn't compete in the final that year, just the qualifier.
I didn't. I
Yeah.
didn't. It was. I think with the whole dive bomb prep that happened in 2022, and then the finals were, I think, like 3 months later.
Oh
I
yeah.
literally mentally just didn't have the. I burned myself out to get
Mm,
ready for the Scottish, and the thought of coming out of the diet to come back into it for
hmm.
it just, yeah. I was like, I need to be done for a little while.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's really something people need to consider if they're new to competing is planning
Yeah,
the season because yeah, like I've said before, my physique really suffers when I stay too lean for too long. I can't maintain that look. I start to get flat, and yeah, muscle loss definitely occurs for me. So yeah, it's definitely something to consider. He probably did the right thing. I didn't do the right thing, and I did go to the final that year, and I messed up massively. Despite winning an overall, I went from doing that to not even placing. So yeah, lessons learned from me there. What was that? Sorry.
I'll just say absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Even this month between the Scottish and the British has been eye-opening to try and stay, if not push
Mm.
further for more conditioning. That's been very interesting.
Really? Okay. So in what? How so? I'm curious.
Um, just in the sense that I've never had to maintain
Mm.
uh, this low of a body fat before. If not, and again, just my mentality, I could never just maintain. I have to push.
Yeah.
Um, so my goal is to be better at the British than I was at the Scottish.
hmm Would you say you? I mean, you looked. It's hard to tell from pictures, but you looked like your condition was on point for that Scottish. Did you get to a
Yeah,
point where you thought there's a bit more in the tank still?
it's I didn't know, to be honest, until maybe the last few days, and I think, and obviously it all depends on how you come in on the day.
Mhm.
But I definitely think I've managed to wring the towel just that little bit more, and that might come back and bite me on the behind. That might suck me down too much. We don't know until I see it on stage filled out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but
Yeah.
that's a gamble, not even a gamble. That's just a mentality thing that I can't shake.
I understand that. And that's the thing with bodybuilding. I think we were all kind of wired the same way. It's all about pushing and pushing and pushing. But yeah, there is a limit. I mean, yeah, from what I'm seeing, things are still looking good. But yeah, here's a question for you, Anthony. So what's your opinion on class? I know you compete in open, but you still have a love for that classic look. What's your opinion on classic physique as a category?
I think it's a fantastic category. Do you mean on the enhanced side or the natural side of
On
things, or
on
just
the natural side.
on the natural side? Yeah, yeah. I think I think it's a very valid endeavor.
Mm,
I, I I mean, for me personally, I don't know if there's a quote unquote need for it
yeah,
on
yeah.
the natural side of things, but that's just me.
Mm,
I think we're natural. We're never going to be the size of these enhanced guys, so why not just push for conditioning while being shapely as well? But
mm.
that's just me.
Yeah, it's a difficult one really. I've had guests on with very different views from the classic
Mm,
side, and then people who are more, I guess, classic like skeptics of that
yeah.
particular category. And yeah, the argument being that natural bodybuilding should be classic because we're not mass monsters, so it's a classic look anyway. But then there's that flair element that maybe is potentially unique to classic, and obviously the posing trunk's different, and there's a slight difference in the way they pose, maybe. But yeah, I can't see myself going that way as much as I have a lot of respect for those guys. Yeah, I'm gonna stay in open, I think, or masters now because I'm 41. I'm an old man, but yeah, open for me. Um, I really enjoyed what you said in one of your Instagram posts about like why you love bodybuilding, always trying to improve, like in spite of like limitations. And yeah, I can 100% relate to that. And I think bodybuilders are kind of wired that way. But can you elaborate a bit further on that particular point that you made?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. As we've kind of just been discussing there, with moving from the Scottish and continuing on to compete in the
Mm,
British. Maybe the smart thing to do would be to, okay, I nailed a decent peak for the Scottish. Let's see if I can just hold it and maybe eat back up. That was actually suggested to me by a few friends and things of that nature that kind of know the the sport.
yeah.
I'm just not wired that way. If
Mm,
I'm doing something, whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's music, whether it's any endeavor,
mm,
I I have to know that I left it on the floor.
mm.
That kind of I don't know if you've ever seen the Tom Platz muscle camp on YouTube where he's talking about he's like I must leave it on the floor.
Mm.
I can't leave 5 reps in the tank kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
that's very much the way that I'm wired when it comes to bodybuilding. And the only reason I even competed again, and I was only going to do the Scottish again, it was because in the years following my 2022 prep, I'd struggled with various injuries.
Right.
Just wanted to see if I still had it
Mm.
in me to do it. And to have pushed beyond the 2022, it was almost like the goal has already been hit now, and it's like the British is just the bonus round where I get to go and see what else I can do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but that was the main drive to compete again.
Hmm.
It was I need to know if I can still do this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I think you've touched on something that kind of unites all bodybuilders, I think, and it is that just that wanting to push and keep pushing and pushing to see how far you can go. So yeah, no, it's a really good point there. Another area I wanted to delve into a little bit, Anthony, was your training. So interestingly, you're a big fan of front squats, and you attribute this movement to a lot of your quad and your lower back growth. And for those who haven't
Yes.
seen, your quads and back, should definitely check them out because they're massive. Can you give the listeners an insight into your love for front squats? Yeah, why you feel they work for you?
Yeah. To be honest, front squats initially came in as a point of necessity, and it was, as I said, I my first 5, 6 years or so were spent training in my mum and dad's garage,
Right.
or garage, I should say. And after the first maybe 2 years or so, I
Mm.
literally ran out of weight to do back squats.
Right, right.
So just through necessity, I moved on to front squatting, and I pretty much exclusively front squatted for about 2 or 3 years.
Hmm.
And those 2 or 3 years, my thighs exploded. That might just be a coincidence, and I might just be basing my philosophies of training on coincidences. My thighs were maybe going to pop regardless,
Hmm.
but I can't deny that when I started front squatting, my thighs, something happened to them.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I think it's a great move. You don't see many people do them these days. I think we're kind of modern gyms, modern bodybuilding gyms are spoiled with the like an array of equipment these days, and people tend to veer towards like a hack squat or a pendulum or a leg press. I used to do a lot of front squats as well, actually. They definitely hit the lower back hard as well, the erectors, and if you get used to the bar position, they're an amazing movement. And yeah, your back, yeah, your lower back is definitely very well developed. And you've started doing conventional deadlifts again as well, I noticed. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, very recently started some touch and go conventionals again, which I haven't done in a long, long time.
Mm.
Again, at the start of 2024, I popped my hamstring, and
Right.
so hip hinges in general have been a bit of a dodgy experience in the last kind of year and a half or so.
Mm.
But it's getting to the point now that I'm like, yeah, I just need to get over myself and
Hmm.
get back to it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, cool. Well, that's good that you're, fully recovered in the area and able to do it again. That's good. Um, here's a question. So I know I don't know if you know the podcast Modern Wisdom. So it's quite a popular. It's not a fitness podcast, but this guy, Chris, he has when he has fitness guests on, he generally asks them to pick like 10 exercises. If they could only have 10
Yeah,
exercises to pick, what would they pick? And I'm not a big fan of that question because I think exercise selection is such a personal thing. I think we're all built differently and we're all going to have different favorite movements or optimal movements as a result of that. However, I'm curious because you seem to be someone who's very much in tune with like your body and what exercises work for you. So, which movements do you feel like been the biggest contributors to the physique you have built over the years?
sure. I would have to throw in front squats.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Although I guess I'll allow back squats as well. It's quite
Hmm.
interchangeable there. But any form of squat, barbell
Hmm.
squat, um, I would probably say an RDL, a Romanian deadlift.
Yeah.
In terms of actual physique development,
Hmm.
I would throw in a leg curl and a
Hmm.
calf raise. That's going to take care of the lower body. Upper body, I'm going to go a low incline press. I'm going
Yeah,
to
yeah.
go with a dip. I'll go with a neutral pull up.
Yeah, love those.
Yep, I'll go with a bent over row. That's
Hmm.
us on 8. I'll throw in a lateral raise with any implement
Hmm.
and any kind of dumbbell curl. I figure the dips we're kind of getting a 2 for 1 there with a
Yeah.
bit of extra chest and triceps. So yeah, that's those would be my 10.
Yeah, yeah, got it. Yeah, no, some great movements there. Um, Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you've covered pretty much everything there with those, haven't you? So yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Um, I want to go back to yeah, staying with your current training. I wouldn't say you've got like an old school. I'd be curious to know how you would kind of categorize your training, but obviously you have a combination with machines, free weights, like a lot of bodybuilders do. What do you make of the current wave of, and the I don't want to call it, but it is evidence-based training. So I've incorporated some of these movements into my own training, and but I think it can certainly go too far. Oh, sorry, I've just lost you there. Yeah, there you're back. Yeah, a bit of a hiccup there. Yeah, so as I was saying, yeah, evidence-based training. I've seen a few of these people have maybe taken things a bit too far. I've seen a few accounts of potential like novice lifters utilizing like wacky techniques with cuffs and what have you, when they probably should just be lifting with like heavy, more conventional movements, rowing, compound movements. And it reminds me of like the early years of being a PT when you get a lot of PTs doing like crazy stuff on Bosu bills and stability style work. But what do you make of like the current wave of evidence-based? I don't want to call it evidence-based. I want to call it optimal training.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it has a lot to answer for,
Right, right,
to be
okay.
honest. I think your first, this is just, again, just because it's where I come from. So I'm maybe biased in my own way. I'm definitely biased in my own way.
Mhm,
I don't think you can go wrong with a barbell, a set of dumbbells, and a pull-up bar.
mhm,
If you a squat rack, barbell, dumbbells, and a pull-up bar. I
mhm,
think your formative years of training, I'd happily die on this hill. I think they should be based around those implements.
mhm,
I think there's, and again, it's maybe anecdotal, but I mean, history doesn't lie.
mhm.
I think that um, pretty much every incredible physique that we've ever seen has been built on basics.
Yeah.
And then maybe as they've gotten older, maybe injuries have crept in, as I'm finding myself.
Mhm,
I struggle with free weight barbell presses now, so I quite often will use a Smith press now. But my first decade of training was
mhm,
spent on free weights, and I think there's a certain look that
mhm.
that just can't be had without it. There's a density, there's a thickness that
Yeah.
can't be had without learning how to stabilize a barbell.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I've said this before. I think a lot of the avoidance of those moves is because they're hard. They're just hard to do. They require a lot of effort, and you need to be in the right headspace. And it's easier to do something that's a bit more optimal, but without the effort. Uh, so yeah, no, I would agree. I think it has its place. The length and partial work, and some of those techniques, I think they can have a place in like a program. But yeah, from what I've seen from some people online, it has definitely gone a bit too far for sure. Have you remained? You mentioned injuries there. I wanted to touch on that. Have you remained like mostly injury free throughout your lifting career?
I'm largely injury free. Yeah,
Mhm.
I've been quite lucky. The last couple of years were a bit touch and go, and it's just been kind of as I've entered into my 30s, I'm like, right, okay, maybe sometimes it is okay to pre-exhaust. Maybe I don't have to come in and rip 5 plates off the floor straight
Mm.
away.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever it might be, I'm not bragging numbers or anything like that, but I don't need to come in necessarily and squat first. I don't need to come in and deadlift first. I can
Mm.
I've it's almost like I've paid my dues there. I've had
Mm.
my decade plus of doing that, and now I can focus on refinement. I think a lot of this optimal thing, it's running before you can walk.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
I think there's a certain element of paying dues that need to be done to build a physique. Certainly naturally. Again,
Mm.
we don't necessarily need to make a distinction in training styles between enhanced and naturals, but
Mhm.
I've found I remember back in the days where it was pretty much every natural bodybuilder was running powerlifting programs.
Mm.
In the early kind of 20 teens and things like that,
Yeah.
everyone was on Wengler
Yeah.
531 or August 753 and all that kind of thing.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. I've just certainly experimented with that as well. And yeah, yeah. No, it's changed. It's kind of changing. It's going to go through, yeah, peaks and troughs, isn't it? Fitness, and there's going to be trends that come and go. But
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's the heavy basic stuff that's going to be there. Or not even. not even specifically barbell or free weight stuff, but just working hard is what's going to get results, really. Pushing heavy compound movements, be it a machine or a free weight. So I guess you've had to change your training slightly over the years, would you say? Has it
Yeah.
changed drastically over the almost 2 decades you've been training? No.
No, it hasn't changed drastically. I kind of play back and forth with different splits and things like that. But as long as I'm hitting my basic movements and the split isn't stupid,
Yep, yep.
um, and I'm not kind of overlapping too badly,
Mm,
then I think it's yeah. I don't think it's very complicated. I think it's made to be complicated nowadays when it doesn't need to be.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. I think an area that perhaps is a little overlooked is that exercise selection. I think there are going to be some movements that don't work for some people or will just take a bit more time for them to get used to. But yeah, apart from that, you're right. People do, they overcomplicate things massively. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I was going to ask as well. So obviously this is your second year. How long you're 32, so you're still relatively young, certainly in the natural bodybuilding sense. Yeah. You see guys going to their 40s, 50s and beyond with tremendous physiques. How long can you see yourself doing this for competitively?
It's hard to answer that at the end of a contest prep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I've been saying to my family, my partner, and things like that, I will never do this again.
Right, right.
When there's the hard times, but I can see myself taking a good long off season before I compete again. I could easily see it being another 3 years before I do anything stage related again.
Mm,
Um, Even to the point I'm like I could see myself waiting until I'm a masters
mhm.
competitor to compete again. But that's just that's where we're at the point of 6.5 months into a prep.
Yeah, yeah.
So you never know. I always say you never know because I said at the end of the 2022 prep I'll never do this again, and
Right.
here we are.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, if I asked you in 6 months' time, you might have a different answer. But yeah, what's interesting about you, and I think is the fact that yeah, it's your love for training. That's the thing. You've competed in 2022, you've competed in this year, but you don't go and do like, I did 5 shows last year. You're not doing masses of shows. For you, yeah, it's clearly a love for trading, and the bodybuilding is like a byproduct of that. And that's great to see because there is definitely a trend of people, I think, today who are just competing for social media. And that's clearly not what you're doing because you would be doing it year on, consecutively. So that's good to see. And definitely like a lesson there, I think, for someone who's new to bodybuilding that you need to cement that love for training first before you think about competing. Definitely.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Talking of that, on that point, Anthony, what advice would you give to any kind of young lifter who's thinking of getting into bodybuilding?
Stay the course. Um, no, I would say not necessarily don't have social media or anything like that because I think we're essentially at the point that's unrealistic nowadays.
Yeah.
But don't miss the forest for the trees.
Mhm.
You will find that this is very simple if you allow it to be.
Mm,
It's a very, very simple. It's not easy, but it's
mm,
simple.
yeah.
That's what I always say.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't allow yourself to become clouded by things that you'll see on social media because that's an
Mm,
abstraction. That's not, in my opinion, that's not real.
mm,
Um, yeah,
yeah. Some good advice there. Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that completely. Um, yeah, so when you first started competing, yeah, social media wasn't a thing, same as myself. Yeah, it's a very different landscape then. People who competed then, oh, sorry, people who started training then trained because they love training. They weren't tripods in gyms, any of that. It was a whole different world. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I bring a tripod to a gym occasionally to film my workouts, but yeah, it was totally different. So yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think that pretty much sums up all the questions I had. This has been really insightful. I've enjoyed this chat thoroughly, Anthony. But like I do with all my guests, we're going to do some quick fire questions next that are not bodybuilding
yeah.
related. What is your favorite film?
Well, train spotting.
Oh, classic. Yeah, I haven't seen that in years. Great film. Yeah, yeah. Who was it? Danny Boyle who directed? No, was it? Yeah,
Yes,
it
yeah,
was. Yeah, I thought so.
yeah.
Yeah, great film. He also did 28 Days Later, and then he's done some other films. But that's a real classic, a very dark film. But yeah, great film. What are your hobbies outside of bodybuilding?
I actually, my previous hobby precedes bodybuilding. I play guitar and I sing a little bit as well.
Right, right. Yeah, I saw that actually. Yeah, what kind of music do you? What kind of music is it?
Oh, all sorts,
Hmm.
all sorts. Given that I started so young,
Yeah,
started playing guitar when I was 9.
yeah.
There's
Wow.
not much that I haven't dabbled in music wise.
Oh, that's incredible. Do you play any other instruments, or is that the main one?
I play a little bit of piano, a little bit of drums, and if you can play guitar, you can play a little bit of bass. So if I'm ever needed as a bass player, then I can fake it till I make it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm kind of jealous. My wife bought me a guitar back in 2012, and I had I wanted to learn, but it just never happened. I learned how to play a few, yeah, a few, but even learning the chords for me, yeah, I couldn't even get to that point. I could copy whatever you would call the ham positions and play certain tunes, but yeah, it was a short thing for me. But yeah, big respect for you for doing that because it's quite a tough thing to do. You still do it quite a lot, Anthony.
Yeah, yeah. I still, in fact, I'm gigging this evening.
Oh, amazing. Oh, wow. Oh, very cool. Last question. What advice would you give for your younger self? It doesn't have to be bodybuilding related, but it could. It, yeah, it could be.
Ooh, what would I give to my younger self? It'll be all right.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It'll be all right. You'll get there.
You get that. I like that. Yeah, we tend to worry when we're younger. But yeah, that's a nice piece of advice. Well, look, Anthony, this has been a ton of fun. Thank you for taking the time out to come and chat with me today. I know you're deep in prep, so yeah, I really appreciate you doing this. Um, yeah, I wish you all the best for your finals. And yeah, that is all, guys. So yeah, thank you once again for joining me.
Thank you, Anthony. It's
And
been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
yeah, appreciate it. And yeah, thank you guys for watching and for listening. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thanks.